when we moved to Virginia 6 years ago now, I was looking for a place that was near water. I started doing Google searches, look overhead to see if there was anything. And I was really disappointed to find out that there were almost no natural lakes in Virginia. There's two, I think, and they're really more ponds than anything. Not much in terms of recreation, and certainly not much close to here. But the rivers were here. I thought, well, maybe that's where I'll find water. So we were looking at houses, we looked at some in the city, and there was just nothing that was really working for me. I just had this longing to be near the water. We saw this house for sale by owner, and it was right across from the Shenandoah River North Fork. And I saw that bend in the river, saw the way the light was hitting it. I thought, I could live there. And that's where we've lived ever since. It's along a busy highway, and I've said to a number of people, it feels like a bit of a wounded place. The river's there and it's beautiful. There's so much wildlife. I love the way I can look at the river just sitting on the car bridge, and it extends to either side. It could take me different places beyond where I am right now. But at the same time, there's Route 259 that's running along the river. It's very noisy, it's very busy, there's a lot of truck traffic, and there's a lot of runoff from agriculture. There's pollution, people just tossing things out the windows of their car. But somehow, things keep going at the river. There's so much happening ecologically along the river. There's this car bridge that goes over the river, and when the water drops to a certain point, these whirlpools start to form. And a whirlpool is a kind of dynamic system. It's self-organizing. It takes the matter of the world and it organizes it in this energetic pattern, this spiral pattern, that's constantly being renewed. And I think it serves as a kind of metaphor for life in general. If we think about it, our own molecules are constantly being replaced. And in some sense, 10 years from now, we're not the same us in terms of the matter that makes us up. And yet there's an energy about us that stays constant. I can still look at you in 10 years, and there's something that's recognizable about you, that stayed constant, even while there's something about you that's changed. Well, the whirlpool's like that. These water molecules move through, they spin around, they get ejected out the other side. I even think about this stuff theologically. Does this have anything to do with resurrection? If what we are essentially is a self-organizing pattern, is there a way that what's essentially us could be reconstituted somehow? And what does God have to do with that? Are we a pattern in the mind of God? Fairly abstract types of questions, but they interest me, and they're the kind of questions that the river provokes for me. There's probably nothing more exciting to me than sitting on a rock down by the river and starting to blend into the landscape. And after a while, the wildlife that's there forgets that you're there. They just don't recognize you. You become invisible. And I've had so many amazing experiences that way, where I'll be sitting there, sometimes with a bird blind, sometimes just on a rock or perched behind a log, and suddenly a woodpecker will land 5 feet in front of me. Or sitting on a rock and suddenly the mink emerges, pokes his head up, and it doesn't know I'm there. And for a little bit of time, I get to watch that. Not being an intruder, but just being a part of it. That's really exciting to me.
There are just a lot of different things that one finds at a confluence, and so looking at the confluences and what's going on at the confluence, I think, can give an interesting and a very layered look at the ecology and the history and just kind of the entire sense of place that comes there. What I'm going to be doing is showing selections from a project I've been working on for probably about a year and a half now, called Source and Confluence, Exploring the Chesapeake Bay Watershed. And specifically what I've been photographing are river and stream confluences within the watershed as a way to kind of get a look and a little bit of a feel for the entire region in terms of the waterways and how they contribute to the bay, how everything has to do with the health of the bay, even here in Harrisonburg where the water goes, and I guess generally raise awareness about the bay and the issues that are facing the bay and the region in a time where there's really a lot of attention being given to the Chesapeake Bay and to hopefully for its restoration. There's a photographer, Emmett Gowan, who once said in a book that he feels that his work is a kind of community service, and I really, really like that way of thinking about the work. And I don't know exactly what his reasons were. I can speculate about those, but I think that my reasons for really liking that way of thinking about the work, I consider it something that I feel is very important. Looking at using art and using photography as a way to tell about things that are going on in the area, to hopefully bring some awareness to ecological issues and other kinds of things that are happening. Visiting these places and kind of trying to visually and sometimes verbally kind of tell the story of a place and what's happening there, I think kind of fits that model. And it's a way that I hopefully that the work isn't just self-serving for me, but actually can give back to the community and also to the places themselves.
I love to do landscape photography. Partly it's an excuse to get out in the natural world. I also like to use photography to get people to look at the world a little differently. We were photographing today at a place called Blue Hole in the George Washington National Forest. It's up around the area called Burkton, Virginia, and it's a place I've come to often. I've fished here. My granddaughter wanted to be baptized here, so she was baptized in this water. This particular project I began as a kind of way to chronicle my experience of what used to be called the Little Shenandoah. It's the North Fork of the Shenandoah River. It travels, kind of wiggles its way, goes north and joins the South Fork in Front Royal. And I decided I would do it all in a panoramic format. I just really love the panoramic format. And so I committed myself that every picture would have the river in it in some way, and that it would use a panoramic format. I used to have a Russian camera called a Horizon, where the lens actually moved, it swept across it. And I've got some interesting pictures here because of the distortion with swimmers in the water and this lens that sweeps across. I've done some with stitched panoramic photographs here. Met lots of different people. Picnic out here. It's kind of a nice spot. One thing that the rivers have meant to me is just as a metaphor. I work in the restorative justice field, and I sometimes think of the restorative justice field as a kind of river. A number of years ago, my wife and I, before we moved here, went to the origins of the Susquehanna. We camped along the Susquehanna until we found the source of it. The river, particularly Shenandoah River, is a fabled river, and has quite a history of humans trying to navigate it, to dam it, to get power from it, and so forth. So my particular interest has been in the interaction between human activity and the river, and so I've photographed a lot of the remnants of human activity and the river and their interaction in this project. There's just the mesmerizing quality of watching water, as it moves and the currents. I started kayaking when I moved here, and I love the feel of the water in the kayak. I'm fascinated with the hydraulics, that tremendous pressure that water has, and trying to learn to read the water and sort of know what it's doing. It has a kind of mystery to it.